Welcome to the More Podcast with Ava and Najee, where we are manifesting original rich-bixch experiences. Each week, we bring you travel reviews, wellness advice, and general millennial musings with a level of refinement. What level? It fucking depends. Hello, Najee.
Hi, how are you?
Long time no see.
Right, it hasn't even been 24 hours yet.
No, it hasn't been 24 hours. We are fresh off of a travel weekend in Atlanta.
Very, very fun stuff. I think we got a lot done. We got to see a lot. And even though the weather wasn't fully cooperative, we were out and about. We were mixy. It was a good time, right?
Yeah, the weather was shit. Let's just call it what it was.
Not to mince words.
Yes. No, it was fun. So this is our last travel review of 2022, which is so hard to believe. We kicked it off in Minneapolis, and then we went across the pond, spent some time in London and in Bath, the UK, and then Palm Springs, and now Atlanta.
Good stuff. Now, as we all know, I moved to Atlanta earlier this year, and I have not really gone out to see the sights or really kind of experience what the social scene really looks like here in Atlanta. And I think a couple of times during the weekend, I told you this is probably the most I've been out since I moved here. So kind of coordinating this particular trip was a little stressful, but it almost kind of just felt like exploring different parts of a new city, even though I feel like I've been coming to Atlanta since probably like 2015. So it was kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we were able to get you out in your city so you can discover some new places you might want to go back to, some places to meet up with your friends, all that good
and
stuff.
Other things.
Get out of the house.
We found some really great locations just to chill, potential date scenes, and other places just to have a good meal. So we're going to go through all of that today.
Yes. And this was just a weekend trip, so this was pretty short. I flew to Atlanta on a Friday morning. And when I booked my flight, I thought, oh, perfect. I'm going to land around 9 a.m. on Friday. Gives us a full 2 days to really absorb the city. But what I didn't really think about when I chose that flight was the fact that it left at 5 a.m. And even that in and of itself isn't the worst thing in the world. But when you start to do the math the night before on what time you got to get up to get dressed to get to the airport, I found myself setting an alarm for 3 a.m., which it just doesn't mesh with my lifestyle. I'm very much a nighttime person. I don't really go to bed until midnight. Really wouldn't be able to fall asleep earlier if I tried. So I rolled into the city hot on 3 hours of sleep. Don't recommend.
You made some great TikToks to kind of reflect your experience there too.
Yeah, don't recommend.
It influenced some great content. We'll say that.
It was bad. I mean, I'm never going to do that again. I think my earliest flight time, 7 earliest. Mm-hmm. But really, I'm like a 10 a.m. girl, you know?
That makes sense. Totally. Yeah.
But again, I wanted to optimize the time for, an ample weekend in the city. And that's what we did. Just required a few coffees on Friday.
Exactly. And understanding that she typically falls asleep at midnight. So understanding that she got on a 5 a.m. flight, I was like, you know what? My girl's going to need some coffee. She's going to need some coffee. So that was definitely our first stop from the airport.
It was.
We ended up going to a place in Midtown, I believed, called Land of a Thousand Hills Coffee.
Yes.
That was super, super comfortable. I loved how they had the nice couches, the lounge areas, and it wasn't too far away from the hotel either. Midtown's actually not like super large, but it is kind of split into two different parts. There's like the main Midtown, which is close to Piedmont Park, and then there's West Midtown that is across the highway. We wanted to start our adventures in Midtown, so we start with the coffee there, got some work done, had some coffee, and just really kind of started our day, started our rainy day anyway.
Yes, the coffee shop was very much giving like co-working kind of couch vibes, and that was good because we had some work for the pod that we wanted to do. And I mean, so important detail, we did concentrate this trip in the Midtown area. And Midtown is north of downtown, also north of the airport. So everything was pretty concentrated in that area, and stayed at the Marriott properties in Atlanta Midtown. Properties plural. So I booked a hotel stay at the AC by Marriott. But when we got there, we realized very quickly that it was actually connected also to the Moxie, which is another Marriott brand. And it was actually very strange because to find my room in the AC hotel, I walked through the Moxie lobby bar, up the Moxie elevator, down a Moxie hallway, and then at some point, the carpet changed to hardwood floors, and I was then in the AC hotel again. It was very bizarre.
Yeah, so the problem was that the elevators closest to the AC hotel were apparently down, and that wasn't properly communicated at check-in. So when they were giving us instructions on how to access the room, we actually had to go through a whole different hotel, which I can see how people were confused about that. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, I mean, even if the elevators weren't down, it's just a weird setup because it's quite literally the carpet changes to hardwood floors and you're in a different hotel. I've never experienced that in my entire life.
Yeah, same. I have never experienced that. I mean, two hotels and connected in one building isn't like a new concept. They're a little bit of everywhere, but the way that this was set up was a little different. So it
Yes.
just took some getting used to.
It was a big spacious room. Had a full desk, had like a full couch situation, king size bed, very comfortable sleep. So that was good. But I think people either opt for Moxie or they opt away from it because it's more of kind of like a younger scene, games and party type of vibe, which is very different from the AC vibe. So it's just a bit jarring to like walk through DJ party to get to that king size bed.
Yeah, so weird. So weird.
So weird, but it was conveniently located, um, and so that set us up well to head right next door to the Four Seasons for a cocktail later that afternoon.
Right. And the Four Seasons was actually nice. It was a little dated, like most Four Seasons are, but um, when we went to Bar Margot, we had some pre-dinner cocktails, a little bit of light bites. Us getting into the Bar Margot initially was a little bit staggering because we weren't met with the warmest welcome, but we eventually turned it around and we got a really great server, and had some really good shrimp.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to like the concept of just being able to like walk up and sit at the bar. I feel like that is really going away because what happened is we saw an open seat at the bar. We walked up there to sit at it, and basically the bartender was like, "You can't sit with us." So that's weird, but I'm finding that more bars are actually doing reservations, like reservation based for those seats, which is just confusing because it really puts you in a place where you don't know how to act.
Yeah, but I don't think that was necessarily the case with this point because the hostess pointed us to the bar. She said, "Hey, if there are open seats, you can sit there." So we went to go sit at the edge of the bar, and I think where we were trying to go might have been a service station, but we saw two people just get up from there. So that's why we thought we could sit there. The bartender waves us away from that area. We find an open seat. I said, okay, Ava, you can sit here. I'll just stand right behind you and we can just chit chat. And apparently the bartender didn't like standing room only situations at the bar. So we were forced to go back to the hostess and get a table.
Yes.
But yes, that's bar reservations has also become like a thing, especially with like very popular restaurants.
Yeah. I don't like that. I think bars should remain first come, first serve, because part of the whole draw of a bar, one, is for like the solo traveler or the solo diner or drinker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And making a reservation for one, I've done it. I've had to do it in London, but it just feels weird and fairly unnecessary. Like, chances are anywhere you go, like, they're not going to turn away one person.
Right.
Like, to be able to turn away one person, that's a pretty like dire situation.
When you made the reservation in London, was it for like a lunch or was it for dinner?
No, definitely not lunch. I was not making any lunch reservations, but it's just like it's weird because like the whole concept of bar is you're supposed to be able to just like walk up, have a seat, turn to your right or turn to your left, have a chat with someone. Like, it's supposed to be kind of like a come and go social situation, and I don't like what the reservations are doing to the bar scene.
Yeah, I see it mostly in like extremely popular restaurants, I guess to optimize seatings, turnover, what have you. But it's just like not a fun thing because typically the culture is, okay, well, I just want a seat at the bar. I don't want to have to make a reservation.
Right.
And having to make a reservation for the bar is a little staggering. So I don't know.
Bring open seating bars back. Let's start the petition.
Let's start the petition.
Let's do it.
Yes, let's do it. Let's get some signatures.
But I did enjoy our time at Bar Margot, and the Four Seasons had some very beautiful Christmas decorations, very extravagant lobby vibes, lots of trees, lots of lights. It felt like a very, very fancy mall rotunda.
Yeah, it gave me very much like old world glamour, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if that's not done to its like peak capacity, it feels dated. And that's how I felt about it. But it was a beautiful hotel regardless, and most of the people were very nice.
Yeah. So would you go back to the Bar Margot like on another Friday night with some friends?
I would not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would not. Only because just that opening experience really kind of just turned me off overall.
Yeah.
But I will say Bar Margot and the Four Seasons overall is a very, very popular place because
Yeah.
all I saw was a whole bunch of cars coming in both Friday and Saturday night. So definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, it was very busy and it was quite full. I mean, it was a Friday night when we were there, but it was quite full the whole time we were there.
Yeah. And the music was popping.
Yeah. And they actually brought in a DJ at some point.
Yes, that was super fun. Very kind of like current, but some throwback jams too. I was definitely vibing the whole time with the music. Shout out to that DJ.
That was fun. That was a good start to the evening, I will say. So then what?
So after the Four Seasons, we went to Rowdy Tiger, another restaurant in Midtown that's actually connected to the Renaissance Hotel there. And that restaurant, although very, very nice, decorated and outfitted very beautifully, it wasn't as poppin'. I think there was like a party in the back that we sat next to. So we were catching kind of some of the energy from there and the vibes. It looks like someone was celebrating a birthday and it seemed like they were having a lot of fun. So that was nice to see. We had a really, really great server named Tony who was very personable. He had a lot of great suggestions and he was really funny. And I love some personality from my servers. I don't know about you, but I love a good little banter moment.
Yes, he was very nice.
He was so nice. I believe I ordered a cast iron salmon.
Yes.
And what did you order?
I had a chicken sandwich and a side of macaroni and cheese because I was like, well, I'm in the South. I'm going to do as they do, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Barbecue, white bread, like those, and macaroni, gravy, like those are the things that I associate with just
Yeah.
Southern food.
Comfort food. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it's like I'm gonna lean in and do a little of that. It's very average. Nothing to really report on. Um yeah. Very bland. Very just it was it was fine.
Yeah. It's very hard to do like Southern comfort food in like a big restaurant setting. Ugh. Especially if you grew up with a mother like mine who knows how to cook, cooks very well, is well revered for her cooking
Uh-huh.
prowess. So that's probably where I get my pickiness from dining situations and just food tastes and things of that nature because I'm typically used to things that are very well seasoned, flavors are well balanced, and it's really easy to tell when it's not that. And that macaroni and cheese was like not that.
It was shit. It actually wasn't worth the gluten. Like there, when I'm out and I'm traveling, like there are times where I will be like, well, I'm going to diverge from my gluten-free diet for like a specific item. This one was not worth it. I would rather have not eaten it, but you know, it is what it is. And frankly, like I used to live on mac and cheese. Like
Oh.
before I had my gluten-free awakening, and before my food taste really like developed as an adult, I would
Hmm.
get mac and cheese everywhere. And so I knew what the best ones were. If you have got like a panko bread crust on top, amazing. Like I was into it. And
Wow.
this was absolute shit. Like not even worth reporting on. So,
Well versed in mac and cheese, the mac and cheese
yes.
expert here.
Yes. Yes. And
I
it's really
love
hard to
that.
make mac and cheese with no flavor because cheese is naturally so salty. Like it was very puzzling.
Yeah, not a fave, but mm, I don't know. The overall vibe and experience in our waiter was very, very nice. The food left a lot to be desired.
Yeah. Don't recommend.
Yeah. And Tony said that they make the best old fashions in the city. And I was like, "Ugh, okay, I'll be the judge of that." And lo and behold, it was like not the best old fashioned in the city. I actually had one earlier when we did lunch at Five Church. I think that old fashioned was better.
Yeah.
So just all the way around, I'm like,
I know. I just looked over at you and I go, so is it the best old fashioned in the city? And you just point blank, you're like, no. It is not.
like it was not. Yeah, unfortunately not. Just tasted like a regular old fashioned. Nothing new, nothing different, same old shit. So
Yes.
it's fine.
So then being
Okay.
like a little displeased with our like dinner experience, I think we kind of navigated back on the town looking for something good. Um if what we found, I don't know if what we found was good, but we found interesting because we moseyed our way into like a little unexpected bar club DJ situation.
Yes. So we went to Mid City,
I don't
I
even know what it's
believe.
called. I
That
was just
was
like, what is
I think
happening?
I think it was close to Rowdy Tiger. But we went in there. It was very small, quaint, pretty packed. Um, the DJ was playing a lot of like dance, electronic. The lights were dim, of course. The crowd was very mixed. So you saw some older folks that might have been in their 40s. You saw
I would
some.
say they were pushing 60. Those older guys. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Add
They
20
might have
years.
been 60. We saw some people that looked like they were in college or fresh out of college. Then you have people like us that are somewhere in between.
We were lost.
So it was a little bit of a hodgepodge of a situation. But the people looked like they were having fun. They were dancing. They had craft cocktails on the menu. So when you have a craft cocktails, you know that the bartenders are working. So our
Hmm.
bartenders were working. They were mixing drinks. Overall, I the feeling I felt in there was very good. I felt like people were having a good time, which
Hmm.
kind of elevated my mood. The
Yeah.
crowd was a little all over the place, but not a bad place to kind of randomly stumble in and have a few after drink cocktails. I would say that.
Yes, and you're right. The bartender was working because I think I saw her make like 15 espresso martinis, which, I mean, that's a lot of labor, especially for like a
Yeah.
late night spot that's like really packed. I was actually
Mm-hmm.
surprised at the menu of craft cocktails because they're, multi-ingredient drinks. And I feel like typically you don't see that in like that type of kind of almost like clubby environment because they just want you to like they want to be as fast as possible with the service.
Right.
So it was a very interesting contrast.
I felt the same way, and I was additionally impressed that the bartenders seemed like they were actually like having fun and they weren't overstressed either. And it didn't seem like there was a whole bunch of people waiting at the bar for drinks because you know how you see that sometimes and like clubs or bars and things like that where it just feels a little bit like high pressure overpacked, and I didn't get that feeling at Mid City.
Yeah. Well, I think the space was so small. It was like kind of like a long, narrow place. Like it almost worked to their advantage because only so many people could fit in there. And frankly,
Hmm.
like they couldn't have fit any more people in there when we were there. So I feel like that probably helps. But I don't know. It was interesting. It was interesting.
It was interesting. I mean, at that point, we had had a couple of drinks throughout the day, so we were feeling light, bright, and festive. And we had fun.
Yeah.
We had fun with our company, with each other,
Yes, we had fun with each other.
and that's what it's all about.
Yes. So that was Friday. I was pretty exhausted by the end of the day.
It was very late. It was like way past my bedtime.
Yes. Yes. But Saturday we had a whole day and we did some more activities, if you will. So we met up for coffee on Saturday and then we
Hmm.
walked our way over to Piedmont Park, which I enjoyed. So that was nice. It was raining Friday, not raining Saturday daytime. So it gave
Right.
us an opportunity to be a little more leisurely with our commuting from place to place on foot, which was nice. And then it rained again Saturday night and Sunday.
Now, Piedmont Park is like this large, spacious, green park basically in the center of Midtown Atlanta. So, just to paint the picture, there are tons of events that happen there every year. And that's also where basically the whole Pride celebrations took place earlier this year that
Oh,
we
okay.
talked about, I think in September.
Okay.
So additionally, with all the open space, they have a lot of like sporting places where people can play like volleyball and like tennis and stuff like that. But they also have a very spacious 30-acre botanical garden there.
Yes, the Atlanta Botanical Garden.
Yes. Now, I wasn't aware that it was an actual thing. I kind of thought we were just going to like stroll through a couple like garden plots and see some beautiful flowers. It's actually a pretty popular attraction here in Atlanta, and they try to kind of like mix it up with a couple different events throughout the year. So when we got there, we discovered that they had some type of holiday light spectacle that happens during the evening time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we had plans for the evening, so we weren't going to stick around for that, but we wanted to check it out anyway. So when the lady handed us the brochure and we saw that there was all types of stuff, there was like a Japanese kind of like botanical area, there was a rose garden, there was a conservatory that had basically an orchid section. We decided to stop by and actually kind of tour a small part of it just to see what was popping. And of course, we had to start right at the Rose Garden,
Obviously.
obviously.
Yes. Saw some very, how do you know how to describe those roses? Some chili buds.
Some chili buds.
Some chili buds.
They were a little chilly.
Well, I wasn't fully sure like if they'd even be blooming, but they were. So we saw some white roses and we saw some fuchsia roses. and they were kind of closed up because it was cold, but the raindrops, like they were very pretty, but it was definitely more kind of like I mean, they're winter roses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But loved them, of course, nonetheless. And then we went to the Orchid Center and the kind of tropical plant area. And that was really nice because obviously the climate is significantly warmer. And I enjoyed being in there.
Yeah, it was a little cold that day. I did not wear a coat because I wanted to be cute, obvi. But being in that warm tropical rainforesty environment was nice. And it was also very grandiose. That's just how it felt.
Mm-hmm.
Like we walk into this huge, beautiful, like floral reef that's absolutely gorgeous. You walk around. When you actually get into the orchid, well, before you get into the Orchid Center, you're in the rainforest area.
Yeah.
So just imagine very like tall plants, huge palms, huge banana leaves. We even saw an alligator snapping turtle
Yeah, we did.
in some type of little moat river area that they had, which was very interesting.
It felt like we walked into the zoo for that little moment.
A little bit, yeah. Like I can understand why they initially described it as basically a rainforest because it really was like a small rainforest.
Yeah, and they actually had like frogs in the environment chirping.
Definitely. The Koki frogs.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Very authentic.
Very authentic. So I think that was definitely worth seeing. And
Mm-hmm.
the actual Orchid Center, which is towards the back of the conservatory, is a vision, I would describe it. Lots of different types of plants, lots of color, and it's definitely a mood. Like to the point where we actually saw some girl, she was sitting on one of the benches. I believe she was studying. She had a laptop and a book open. And I can totally envision myself doing that because just the vision of all the colors and the beautiful flowers was breathtaking. And not only that, the aromas that you just smelled, kind of like walking through, especially the Orchid Center,
Mm-hmm.
I just could not get enough of it. I just kept doing very deep inhales because I wanted to take in all of it. It smelled absolutely gorgeous. And you know, with my obsession with candles, I love
Mm-hmm.
very, very nice natural smells.
Sense, yeah. Yeah, well,
Hmm.
it's actually like a life hack here that in the wintertime, like it's healthy to go into like garden centers because the quality of the oxygen that the plants kind of release and turn over is really good for you. And so like I was definitely not surprised to see her in there because I'm like, I know what she's doing.
Yeah.
Smart girl studying in the Orchid Center for sure.
Hmm.
Yes. It was very
Definitely.
enjoyable. It reminded me a little bit of almost like the Arboretum in Minnesota because
Yeah.
it's a very large, again, multi-acre place. There's a lot of different types of gardens going on. They had a little holiday lights display. They do like the seasonal, like Santa was there. We did not sit on his lap because he looked a little strange, but some really nice poinsettias, and it was a whole vibe. I really enjoyed our time at the Atlanta Botanical Garden.
Yeah, that was actually my first experience doing something like that. I feel like I see people do it all the time, like on Instagram or on Facebook, and it always looks gorgeous. But I'm
Hmm.
happy to kind of had a full experience this
Yes.
time around. So that was really, really nice.
And you could get the local season pass since you live there and you could just pop in.
Yeah, I don't know how often I would pop in, especially since I don't necessarily live like next to downtown or midtown. But maybe one day.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay, so after the botanical gardens, that whole situation was a lot of walking, and it was
Hmm.
also a little cold. So we were a little hungry, so we decided to kind of hop on over to Ponce City Market, which is basically like this large food hall mixed with shopping, and they also have this beautiful rooftop that has a restaurant and games up there and things of that nature. So it's a little bit of kind of like a multifaceted experience here in the city. So we decided to stop by there and grab some food and maybe do a little bit of shopping.
Yes.
So we wanted to initially go to 9 Mile Station, which is on top of the roof there, but just due to some planning hiccups on my end, we ended up going to some Mexican spot in the food hall, which wasn't terrible, but it wasn't amazing. So it is what it is. I think after we kind of fueled ourselves and had our lunch, we did some shopping, and I think we stumbled into this huge storefront that had a lot of different local vendors selling some of their clothing items. Some other people were selling art. There was someone selling some glassware, glass structures. They had a DJ there. They had a bar. And Ava, I think you got some pretty nice, cool, like fetch cargo pants there from
I did.
a guy who's been selling his goods here and has been hooking and linking up with some local celebrities like Rick Ross,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a couple of others.
Me and Rick
So that was
Ross now
pretty
have the
cool.
same pants.
Twinsies.
Maybe. Probably not.
Twinsies. You should definitely comment on it. It's supposed to be like, we have the same pants.
We have the same pants. I'll pass on that. However, yes, so there's definitely two sides to the Ponce City Market experience. There's like the food hall experience, and then there's like the shopping experience. The food hall experience, in my opinion, was kind of a train wreck, simply because by the time we got there, it was like 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I hadn't eaten all day. And I was the most hangry human. And I think dropping a hangry human in a large place where you're like looking for a specific location restaurant that you can't find is kind of a nightmare. But I pulled through. So I hated the food hall component. However, I loved the shopping component. And it was very cool, like you mentioned, lots of local sellers, vendors. And they probably, I don't know, you'd have to let me know, but it seemed like it was amplified a little bit too for like the holiday season. Like they definitely probably had more shopping going on, because it seemed like there was some also kind of like, it was a Saturday in December. It seemed like they were doing a lot. I mean, maybe it's like that every weekend, but there's DJs and there's like a lot of vendors and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they had some little cute photo moments. I took your photo like near a Christmas tree in a chimney.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want to go in the chimney, but I got you as close as you were willing to pose. So that was cute.
I'm way too tall for that chimney.
I mean, it was fun. And then they also had a really creative like wrapping station. So if you purchase things there, they would wrap your gifts for free. But like the way they had it decorated or set up, it very much reminded me of like something out of the Grinch movie.
Oh.
Like just something about the festive decor and like all the different colorful wrappings. And it was cute and it was very creative. And so, I mean, it felt like it's a big place. And I think it can be very overwhelming if you're not someone who loves the food hall vibe, or simply someone who's very hangry.
Yeah, I don't think that worked in your favor, but I've always kind of loved food halls. To your point, Ava made a comment saying that all food halls are pretty much similar, and in a lot of ways they are. But I think what makes it different is just like the area, I guess. So I love food halls because there's just an authenticity factor of that these people usually live and work in the area. I'm obsessed with that. So it's always kind of like nice to get a general feel of what a city or an area is given based on areas like this. So in Philly, there's Reading Terminal Market. There's the really big one in New York that I cannot remember the name of. I've been there 5 trillion times. There's a big one in Baltimore as well. And now I've been to one in Atlanta. So that was a check off my bucket list. We ended up stumbling into, I don't know what we would call it, like crystals and
Yeah,
fun.
it was a modern mystic shop.
Mystic shop, that's what it was.
Hell yeah.
And I thought that was super dope. And I think that might have been my first experience in an actual mystic shop. So that was fun. But overall, just a really interesting and kind of like different experience. Again, started off a little rocky, and again, we turned it around because that's what we do.
Yes. Yep. And I got a little
Okay,
shopping done. So I got
you
some
did.
cool cargo pants. I got a
You got
couple
some
little
gifts.
gifts,
Yeah.
mostly for me. And
Treat yourself.
something I bought that I'm really excited about, I actually started reading it last night, is a color theory book, but it combines color and magic. So for instance, I cracked open, I think I read like the first 20 pages, but it
Hmm.
talks about, for instance, how certain astrological signs have like an associated color or day of the week. So more to come, but it's a very cool book. And the cover and the pages are holographic. So I really just purchased it because I was drawn to the way the book looked. But then I cracked it open. I'm like, hey, this is just what I wanted to read right now. So I feel like, everything's very, like it tracks, it checks out. It makes sense as to why I bought that book, even though I didn't really know
Definitely.
why I needed it on Saturday.
Sometimes you don't really need a reason. It called out to you, you got it, you're enjoying it. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so after Ponce City Market, we decided to go back to the hotel room, made a TikTok. That was so fun. That was my first TikTok experience.
I
Um,
know. Wait, you thought it was fun after all?
I mean, it was fun. It's always
Because you didn't approach it initially with enthusiasm.
there was a lot going on before that TikTok. So I think there was a little bit of that energy that was kind of spilling into the overall experience. But once I got into it, I was totally into it.
Okay.
But after all that, we decided to swing by West Midtown and we went to a Japanese restaurant called Oku.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Oku has a couple of different locations up and down the East Coast. I know they have one in DC, they have one in Charlotte. And when I discovered that there was one here in Atlanta, I absolutely had to go. Me and my friend James actually we used to go to Oku probably almost like once a month um, before I actually came down to the Atlanta area. So I was excited to kind of try this one out to kind of see what it was given. And, when we got there, we decided to have an authentic rich-bixch experience.
Mm-hmm.
And we opted to do the omakase.
Which is?
For those who are unfamiliar with omakases, it basically just means, oh, whatever you want, chef. That's kind of like the loose translation to it. And it's basically a 5-course meal at the restaurant. And it's basically whatever the chef wants to make.
Off
So
menu.
some of the things are off menu, some of the things are on the menu,
Mm-hmm.
but it gives the opportunity for the chef to just really be creative and kind of like think off the top of his head about what he'd like to create for this dining experience for whoever kind of creates or orders the omakase.
Yes.
Now, this isn't my first time at the rodeo with an omakase. I did one at Oku in DC for my birthday last year in 2021. So I was hoping and expecting a very kind of different and unique stylized experience. And to give some context to the story we're about to tell, there's some ups, there's some downs, but overall it was just a lot of food and it turned into a 4-hour dining experience.
Yes. And so when we ordered it, our server told us it was a 2.5 hour experience. And we looked at each other and we said, you know what? Like, that's okay. Let's just like have a vibe here. Let's just, it was a cozy environment. Let's just park it here. And like, this will be, the last thing we do for the evening. And then we'll
Right.
just turn it in?
Yeah.
So that sounded great. And the other important piece of background information is that I really don't enjoy raw food. So
Hmm.
if I go to a sushi restaurant, I will order the sushi rolls with cooked like shrimp, for example, or
Yes.
cooked salmon, for
Yes.
example. And, you know, on occasion, if I've had maybe a drink and a half, like I can kind of plow through things I don't typically like to eat, you know? I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I can get through. And I also I do like trying things, but I told the server that I didn't especially love raw food, thinking that like that info might have been relayed to the chef because there's a lot of other things on the menu that I would have ordered. You know, they've got the edamame, they've got the miso soup, they've got
Mm-hmm.
the miso salmon entree, they've got all sorts of things. But that's not exactly what happened.
Right. So why don't we break down some of the courses? So we also opted for the half glass drink pairings. So each one of the courses came with a specific drink.
Yes. And it was 5 courses of food and 5 beverage pairings. However, we learned that some of the courses had a part 1 and a part 2. So it's actually like multiple courses, many more than
Yeah.
5.
Right. When I was telling you about my last experience, I was like, yeah, there's like 10 or 11 courses.
Yeah.
And I think by the end of the night, it
Which
felt
is
like 10 or
true.
11 courses.
Yeah. 1000%. And I will say this meal started off strong.
It started
It
off
started
really
off strong.
strong.
Our
Yeah.
first dish was delicious. Our first dish was a salmon ceviche with a little ginger and lemon yuzu business going on. It
Mm-hmm.
was delicious. I'm a salmon eater, always cooked well done. However, I enjoyed this dish. It was
It was
good.
hands down my favorite part of the meal. It started off extremely strong. The flavors just kind of like all blended together very nicely.
Yes.
And you can tell that the salmon was like extremely fresh.
High quality, which in theory, everything on this menu was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Um, but then we had some sashimi, which is just quite simply raw fish.
Yeah. So that fish we had was an amberjack fish with a poblano sauce. And I actually like raw fish when it's high quality and very fresh. But this one was a little smoky, and I don't really like smoky flavors. Like I don't
Yeah.
like mezcal. I don't like beef that tastes like too smoky. So the
Mm-hmm.
way that the amberjack was cooked was a little too smoky for my taste.
Prepared. Yeah, because it was
Yeah,
not cooked.
yeah, all that, like all that.
Raw.
Right.
And yeah. Okay, so then we got through that, right? So I'm thinking in my brain, like, okay, I've consumed 2 courses of raw fish. So like surely a sushi roll is coming next. In the
It did not come
meantime,
next. Mm-mm.
no, and it did not come next.
It
In the
did not come
meantime, we learned
next.
there's a part 2 to the sashimi. So there's more raw fish dropped off. And that's when I started to like kind of lose my marbles a little bit. Um I was getting anxious. I actually knocked over my glass of prosecco with a chopstick because I was in panic mode, which was very unfortunate for all involved, including the prosecco.
It was very tragic.
Um, and I think it went downhill from there.
I mean, spoiler alert, to be honest, we started off with the shrimp ceviche that was really good, but
Yeah.
literally the rest of the first course, the second course, and the third course were all like raw fish. So it was just like the second course was a bunch of nigiri, the third course was a bunch of nigiri, and by the end of the third course, I was like sashimi'd and nigiri'd out. Like, you're
Yes.
gonna nigiri me to death. Like, I was completely over it. And I around the time you spilled the prosecco, I felt like I was starting to get a little frustrated too because this was not the omakase experience that I had last time at the Oko in DC, and it was not what I was expecting. I was like,
Yeah.
y'all are gonna sashimi me to death, and that's not okay.
Well, and then it was like, I think there was like 6 plates of raw fish, essentially, was what happened. And, you know, I think I did 2 or 3 plates. And then I started to lose it. And at one point, oh, it was the tuna. I really don't like tuna. So,
Mm,
I could deal with the salmon. I could deal with the amberjack. That was nice fish. I could deal with some of the other things. Um, the tuna, it triggered my gag reflex. And
yeah.
once that gets triggered, it's really hard to reel it back in.
Ew.
And since I had spilled my prosecco, I didn't have a napkin. And so when you went to the restroom and I was trying to like consume this meal, I
Mm-hmm.
actually thought I was going to throw up.
Oh my
Which, like,
gosh.
how fucking embarrassing, one, embarrassing for me, one, offensive to the chef, two, and just like not appropriate, three, would that be?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was just really funny because I'm like, wow, I am forcing myself to eat this meal, which is something that is many people would find like absolutely delicious, like it was a great meal in the sense that a lot of people would love to have that experience.
Right.
But I just simply, I know what I like. And sometimes I think it's interesting, like the back and forth on that when you're like, just try a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more or give it another chance, or you know what I mean? Like you can apply that to any situation too. It's like,
Right.
sure, I'll try carrots again like 6 years later. Oh, still don't like them. Cool. Keep moving. But this meal actually goes down in history as one of my most distressed memories um, in dining. Not lying.
I feel so bad, but I'm also just very proud of you for giving it a shot because a lot of people would not have given it a shot. So kudos to you.
Oh.
But
So then you
honestly, I
actually
was
said
not.
something to
What
the
did I say?
server at one point.
Oh yeah, so you went to the bathroom,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the server asked me, the server asked me, is she okay? And I'm like, you know what? She doesn't really do raw fish like that. We've had like 10 plates of sashimi and nigiri. I think we're just done with the raw fish. And she was like, okay, we can bring out a replacement. We'll bring out some sushi. So we ended up getting some type of sympathy sushi.
Yes. I've been
So that
referring to it as
was
the
okay.
sympathy sushi roll. And it was actually their follow the yellow brick roll, which has like a fried crab. So it was cooked and it was good. But at that point, like, I don't know about you, but that's when I started also to feel full. Like full and also just kind of like not unappetizing, which is really unfortunate because after that point, and we were like, what, 3/4 of the way through the meal, then the
Yeah.
cooked food started to come out.
Yes. Yes. Our fourth course started with the hamachi collar, which is basically a yellowtail fish that has the meatiest part in its actual like collarbone area. And that also came with um, a really delicious prawn. And I don't typically like prawn.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then our
So,
fourth course had a part two that came with like scallops, mushroom bok choy, and a lot of other good stuff. So I was just like a little confused because the last time there was like a lot of like cooked foods and non-cooked foods kind of mixed together.
yeah.
So you never really knew what was coming next and you kind of like balance out the flavors. But it looked like for this particular experience, they kind of just waited to the end for all that.
It was really rough and tragic and brutal and heartbreaking because, again, if we had gotten through, course one and course two and then moved past the raw food, I think it would have been like a very, very great dining experience. But it took so long to get to some of those cooked entrees. Like the fried fish was actually delicious. It had like a ponzu sauce. It was very
Hmm.
tasty, flaky white fish. And that was great. The prawn, great, hard to go wrong there. But when the scallops came around, I was full. So you got my scallops, like you got bonus scallops because I just couldn't eat anymore.
Yeah, that's a win in my book because I love scallops a lot.
I mean, they looked good,
They
but
were. I
again,
ate
I
some
wouldn't
last
know.
night. So that was the fourth course, part one and part two.
Yeah.
And then we wrapped with the fifth course, which was a dessert.
Yeah.
What was
Donuts
it?
and
Donut
mochi.
holes. Yeah.
The donuts were good. They were like very sweet and savory. There's like
Mm-hmm.
some black sesame. I don't know what other flavors were going on there, but maybe like a little bit of drizzle of like not caramel, but something kind of like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then we had some mochi, vanilla, and green tea.
I
And as
also
I
love
said to our
mochi.
server, the dessert stomach is actually separate from the main stomach. So while I was absolutely stuffed, there was still room for dessert because it's a separate stomach.
Totally separate stomach. Unfortunately, my separate stomach was out of order, so I just put the very bready and savory donut holes in my little to-go box, and I ate the mochi. Love mochi.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that coupled with our wine and sake, that was
Yeah.
basically it.
That was the whole thing.
Yeah, 4 hours.
Yeah. So we got there at what, 8 o'clock, 8:30,
Hmm.
8. We left at midnight.
Right. It's very, very intense. And we also got a bonus short rib.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm not exactly sure where that came from. I think it was part sympathy because Ava almost gagged. Um,
Almost. I did multiple times.
she almost gagged and threw up. She
Yeah.
spilled prosecco, and I feel like they also might have thought that their omakase experience that night wasn't as top tier as it typically is. So I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't
And
know.
also, the short rib came after you mentioned that we actually did a travel review podcast and would be talking about the meal,
I'm just saying.
which we should have led with, honestly, because it did turn around after that point.
Right. Right.
Ugh.
Right. I'm just again, not a bad experience. I still would recommend an omakase wherever you're able to partake in it because it
Mhm.
is a really, really cool dining experience. And I do know of some personal chefs that offer it like outside their own homes or in their own small
Mm.
private restaurants. So that's always fun. For this particular experience, I probably would have like replaced one of the nigiris with maybe like a sushi roll, threw in some soup, and kind of mixed up the entrees. But who
Yeah.
am I?
I mean, yes, I really wanted to love the experience. I didn't. But a lot of that came back to my personal taste in food. And so, again, it's one of those things where it's like, I tried. I already knew that I hated raw fish, like it's kind of my
Hmm.
problem. But I guess I just didn't expect it to be 6 courses of, because there's 3 courses of 2 parts,
Yeah,
6 courses of raw fish. It was too much. But I think that if that's something you like, which a lot of people do,
I love it.
it could have been a great experience.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was as good as my omakase experience in DC,
Hmm.
but it's still something I would recommend overall if you enjoy like raw fish, which some people don't, some people do.
Yeah. Trauma. I have I
You-
have some trauma from that.
You're a trooper, definitely a trooper
Thanks.
for that.
Thanks.
So we wrapped dinner at around midnight, and kind of like called it a night after that. And the next morning we woke up and surprise, surprise, we got more donuts.
Donuts, but like American donuts.
Yes, not donuts at a Japanese spot.
Yeah.
So we went to Virginia Highland, which is a area here in Atlanta, small neighborhood. And we went to Donut Dolly's or Dolly's Donuts,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
one of them.
Donut dollies, I
And
think. Well, I
we
don't know.
got, I don't know either, but we did end up trying 3 different flavored donuts.
Yep.
It was a peppermint donut,
Mm-hmm.
an old fashioned donut, not to be confused with the old fashioned cocktail, old fashioned present tense donut. And what was the third one?
I had just a chocolate donut.
And the chocolate donut.
Yes. Yeah, so this is a place that I saw on the Instagrams, and they had a lot of creative flavor combinations. I would say the most creative one we got was the candy cane cookie flavored donut. It was vanilla cake donut with vanilla icing. I couldn't tell if the icing was peppermint infused or not, but it
It was
had
definitely
crushed up,
peppermint infused.
well, it had crushed up candy cane and it had like cookie crumbles on top. And that was pretty tasty. They also had a lot of other holiday flavors that we didn't order. They had like a gingerbread donut, they had an eggnog donut, they had a couple of others, but it was fun and creative. They also had, like a donut with bacon. Is one of those spots.
Mm-hmm.
So we both got kind of a classic donut, and then we shared the candy cane donut. And it was a nice, just Sunday morning activity. Again, nothing like life changing, but they were good.
Yeah, they were good. Virginia Highlands a really cute area. You see people walking their dogs, exercising.
We saw lots of dogs.
Yes. And apparently they have their own website, like virginiahighlanddistrict.com, and had a lot of festive holiday events that weekend that we knew nothing about until we sat down there.
The jingle jog.
The jingle jog. So
They
you dress
had
up in Santa garb and you run.
a jingle jog, which I don't jog, but I love the alliteration.
Yes, love the festivities. But yeah, really nice Sunday morning activity.
Mm-hmm.
The weather was still wet.
Yeah, it was
but
raining.
The donuts were good.
The donuts were good. And then he took me to the airport, and now here I am.
Yeah, and that was that.
Yeah. I think we did a lot, in 48 hours.
Yeah, I think we got a good feel of the Midtown area, which is actually like a typically highly social area here in Atlanta. Like downtown's where a lot of people work. There's a lot of attractions there. That's where a lot of the sports arenas are, but people like really hang out and party and drink in the Midtown area mostly.
Yeah, Midtown seemed like a good kind of mix of commercial and residential. Like you could tell that people live there, but there's also there's like a Google corporate building right in the middle, and like there's a good mix of just things going on. And I don't know like what it would have reminded me of. Maybe like the uptown area of Minneapolis. Again, it's just not downtown. It's like outside of downtown. A little more residential, but still like a lot of things going on. That would be Midtown.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so overall, pretty decent experience. Yeah.
So since you live nearby, I'm curious to know, out of every place we went to, which ones do you see yourself returning to?
Yeah, I mean, I would totally revisit Oku. I probably just wouldn't do the Omakase.
Yeah.
I would definitely go back to Ponce City Market. I definitely want to check out their rooftop, and I thought a lot of the stores were like very cute and unique. So I kind of earmarked a couple of those places in my mind to come back to one of these days. I would actually love to go back to Five Church again. That was a restaurant we had lunch at on Friday. But I had gone there for brunch a few weeks ago, at the one in Buckhead. So that's definitely a restaurant I would recommend and go back to. Yeah, those are probably the main places I would go to again, like next week, if I had the time to. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And I think you should get like the residential pass to the botanical gardens.
You know what? It's a maybe. Like it's a maybe, definitely. Because that is a really, really nice space, and it's absolutely gorgeous in there. Gosh, the scents, I can't get enough of those. So yeah, maybe.
I would like to see you recording an episode of the More Pod live from the Orchid Garden.
Live from the Orchid Garden.
Add that to your 2023 manifestations.
Totally. Add that to my to-do list.
Right.
Recording from the Orchid Garden at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens.
Right. Okay. So as we do with every travel review, we assign a rating out of 10 to the experience. Are you ready? to rate the Atlanta travel review?
Sure. Okay, so the experience we had overall, I'm going to give it a 7 because I think we got to explore the city. We had some hits, we had some misses, but I think at the end of the day, we had a lot of fun. And also, we only had 48 hours, so we were just kind of stuck in Midtown. I would love to kind of explore some of the areas just outside of the main city.
Mm-hmm.
But for what we did, I would probably say a 7. We had a pretty good time.
Okay. So
What
7
about
out of
you?
10 for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if like if we subtracted like the you and I like having a fun pod review together, I would feel pretty indifferent about Atlanta.
Okay.
So when I look at the scale, I think indifferent is a 5 because like that's mid road. Anything above is good, anything below is bad in theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I probably net out this experience at a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
I think it's always fun when we get together. It's always fun that we get to explore new places and try new things. But yeah, like, I don't know. There's a few rough patches and yeah. I think if I hadn't eaten 6 raw courses of sashimi and nigiri on Saturday night, it might be different, but I'm going to give it a 6
Yeah.
out of 10.
Okay. Understandable.
It's okay.
It's okay. 6 out of 10. Solid.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right then. Well, I guess until our next travel review, um, we'll see where 2023 takes us. In the meantime, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, and tune in every Wednesday to hear the things that make us more us. And maybe you can learn a couple things that make you more you. Bye.
Bye.